So, we're back.
Yes, we're back.
And
Together again for the
that's
first
right.
time.
For the first time.
Talking about William Holden.
Actually, it's been so long since I've seen you. 2 weeks.
I know.
I missed you.
the comment together again for the first time
It's from a William Holden movie?
No. It's from the old movies. What they used to do is they would say, they team people together, say Tracy and Hepburn.
Oh, yeah.
And they'd say, together again for the first time. And of course, the question is, but I've seen them 3 times before in a movie,
yeah.
but it's in a war picture.
Right, exactly.
That was the qualification.
Right.
So we're together again for the first time, talking about William Holden.
Right.
So that's our qualification.
Exactly. Cool. So I picked William Holden because I was thinking about he is my favorite actor who's no longer living, who's no longer with us. So if he was still working today, he would be my favorite actor, and I've always been fond of him since I saw him. My first William Holden movie that I can remember paying attention to him was Bridge over the River Kwai. So, but you have an interesting history with William Holden.
Well, it's not a serious history in the sense that
kind of
I met him.
Right.
He came to St. Thomas, this was in the 50s, I was in high school.
Yeah.
And this was around 56. And he made a film called The Proud and the Profane. Mm-hmm. It was a war picture with Deborah Kerr, Thelma Ritter, Dewey Martin, and Nancy Sinatra, Frank Sinatra's wife, who only made one movie and they never acted in a movie again. This was the first wife that everybody knew. But anyway, the film really was to capitalize on Deborah Kerr's success in From Here to Eternity. It was going to be, again, a war picture where the romantic story was larger than the war.
Okay.
You know, the war was a backdrop to
right.
it. It came from a novel that was a best-selling book, but at the time, they couldn't use the title. The book was called The Magnificent Bastards, and it was Marine. And so they changed the title to The Proud and the Profane. Profane, of course, suggesting sexual misbehavior. And so Holden, Deborah Kerr, they all were there on the island. And what impressed me most about Holden when I saw him was how handsome he was. I was maybe 16 at the time, and I'd seen him in Picnic had been done, and a couple of things. And, you know, movie stars were magical people to me. But when I saw him, it was almost like looking at a god coming down from Olympus. I saw him at the pool, he was swimming in his bathing suit and stuff. And he was just at his physical peak.
Interesting.
He just looked so handsome.
Right.
You know, like that he emanated it. You know?
Right.
He was a very nice person. The one thing I remember that stood out because I was a kid was he had a watch that had time, that told the time. This is commonplace these days, but this watch told the time around the world, and I was fascinated by it. You know, you could see the time in Bangkok, you could see the time in Berlin, wherever. And this was during the time when Hollywood had this absurd thing that they were doing, where if you liked something and praised something that they had or were,
like your shirt or something,
or you took it and you gave it to you say you like it, you can have it. Jerry Lewis took it the furthest. Somebody apparently praised his car, and he said, "You like it? It's yours." And he gave him his car. And so they were all talking about this film, this gesture on the location of while they were shooting this film, you know, in the downtown, because I worked for the local radio station, and my job was actually interviewing the stars.
Okay.
And one of the reasons they gave me the job was because none of the stars said no to a local kid asking for an interview. They said no to the Americans.
Right.
And so I could sit around and listen to them talk. The camera crew and the cameras themselves had just come off the set of Land of the Pharaohs.
Okay.
The Howard Hawks film.
Yeah.
Yes. And so they still were painted with that on it, and they were telling all these stories, which I was sitting fascinated to hear.
Yeah.
But to go back to Holden stood out among them. He almost emanated this glow because of his star power, like that. And he had his family with him. His wife came and she joined him for a bit. And his daughter, Virginia, who was a beautiful young woman at the time, she was about 17, she came and she joined them. But that's what
Did he give his watch to someone, though?
Oh, yeah, that's what I started to say. Yes, so one of the crew people said something while everybody else was admiring the watch.
Yeah.
And he turned around and he said, "Oh, you like it? You can have it." And he gave him the watch, and I was like, Oh my God! Had I known he was going to do that, I would have
asked. Yeah,
I would
you
have
would have said something.
Yeah, I like your watch, but I was of course intimidated by
Right.
the fact that he was this major star. His picture had been on Time magazine's cover and everything else.
Oh, wow.
I mean, this guy was as big a star as you want.
Right.
Yeah. But go
For a
ahead.
certain time. Well, I thought we'd start out talking about the Billy Wilder collaborations.
Okay.
There's 4, right?
Yeah.
I was thinking, because there's Stalag 17, Sunset Boulevard, Sabrina,
Yes.
and Fedora.
Right.
And am I missing anything?
No,
Not
no,
that I
those
can
are
think
the
of.
ones. Yeah. those are
So,
the
and I had forgot about Sabrina and Fedora.
Fedora.
Because
Yeah.
Sabrina, he plays a supporting character. He's not the lead. Right?
But he's a good.
He's a really good.
He's a good balance
right,
for Bogart.
Bogart,
Yeah.
But and then Fedora, I've never seen. Fedora,
I've seen it, yeah.
And it's not supposed to be very good, from what I've heard.
Unfortunately, it's an attempt, and it's not that Billy Wilder was trying to cover the same ground, but the novel
Yeah.
or novella from which it came covers pretty much the same kind of ground that Sunset Boulevard covers in a different way. And Holden is quite good in it. What I think is wrong with it is the casting the role of Fedora, the woman in it. Martha Heller,
Right.
Austrian actress, plays the role, and she just didn't have sort of the ghostly emanations that Gloria Swanson, who actually had a history in silent film, brought to Sunset Boulevard.
That makes sense.
And so it didn't work for me. I haven't seen that film in years and years. I'd love to see it again.
It's kind of
just
a
to see-
lost movie
Yeah,
in the
it
sense
has
that I
been.
think it's very
Yeah.
difficult to find it. But I watched Stalag 17 last night. I mean, obviously I've seen it before,
Yes.
but I wanted to refresh myself. It's so good, and specifically Holden, I think, is so perfect in it. And I think it was one of the ones that he was nominated for.
He got the Academy Award for it.
He won
Yes,
the Academy
that's
Award
a
for it?
Academy. That's
I thought he was
Academy
just
Award.
nominated.
No. He was nominated prior to that,
Okay.
but this is the
For
film.
Sunset.
Yes.
For Sunset, yeah.
This is the film that actually set him
Yeah.
into major stardom.
It's a terrific movie. For some reason, this time I was surprised that the humor, Billy Wilder's humor, didn't work as well for me this time. I don't know why, but it just didn't. Like all of the stuff with Animal and kind of got a little bit.
It's a bit
tedious.
broad.
Yeah,
Yes.
it kind of felt like the John Ford humor, which is kind of sometimes hitting you over the head. But Holden, just watching him specifically in the movie is just amazing. So
He holds the film together very well.
Right.
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, that's again, the thing that we've talked about this personally, privately, I mean, and that is, we say any long career that's going to be a good career or even a great career,
Right.
the actor has to reinvent himself periodically.
Yeah.
And Holden actually was coasting because he had these major touchstones. He started with Golden Boy.
Yep.
And he was sort of Boy Next Door, and he was always the image of absolute decency. And then he gets to the point where he's cast in Sunset Boulevard, and he is a morally compromised character.
Right. He becomes the cynic.
Yes.
'Cause
Right.
He plays.
Yes.
That's what I wanted to talk about too. He plays the cynic so well.
Well, that's what, for me, Stalag 17 just underscored, because between Sunset Boulevard and Stalag 17, there were other films, there were comedies, there was a war picture that was quite good. It's really a variation on Farewell to Arms. It's called Force of
That's
Arms.
good, yeah.
Yes, and it's a good war picture, and he was always good in that kind of film, but we needed to see the other side. And then Stalag 17 came along, and going in with our perspective on the basic decency of him, to see him so cynical and at times suggesting the lack of patriotism in the character, was kind of an eye-opener. And then even the end, when he then takes the the key or something, he takes to leave because he's going to take the guy out.
He takes the wire cutters.
The wire cutters, right. And somebody suggests maybe he really doesn't because he wants a wire cutter.
Right.
And I love his last line because I was ready for the sentimental. Ending.
Right, but
Yes.
no, it's not sentimental.
It's
if I ever see you guys again, don't pretend you don't know me. It's
Yes.
so good.
I thought that was so good, like this. And so that film really did open a whole new door for him.
Right.
Yeah.
And you said, like you said, Sunset kind of preempted that.
Right, yes. But as I said, in that he played the morally ambiguous character.
When do you think that he... well, he's a morally ambiguous in Stalag.
But even more so. I mean,
right.
The cynicism is what really underscores it. Yeah, and both Billy Wilder.
And it worked so well for him because I think he played that throughout that middle period because he plays it in Bridge Over the River Kwai.
Exactly.
And he often has these. What I really like about Holden is he makes these turns where he's the cynic. And then at the end, he has this reversal. Mm-hmm. Like in Bridge Over the River Kwai, he's the reluctant hero. He doesn't want to get involved. And then at the end, of course, he's the one that's charging out and gets himself killed. And there's a nice something about that it's a nice tragic thing that works with him where you say this guy didn't want to get involved, but he's... somehow deep inside he can't help it. And there's a movie, I don't know if you've seen this movie, but it's one of my favorites. I saw it on Netflix. It's called The Turning Point.
Yes.
And it has Edmund O'Brien and him, and he plays a cynical reporter, and the whole film he's sort of fighting against kind of getting involved, and then he does get involved and it cost him his life. And there's interesting things. And that's from a director named William Dieterle, who I think needs a reappreciation.
Right, yes. Well, there's a whole bunch of these guys who were studio pros that the auteur theory sort of buried.
Right.
And these guys were sensational. Right. I mean, we talked about Michael Curtiz being the king of that. Right. But there's all of these other guys were wonderful. Toby Hooper later on. Yeah. They were specialists in certain areas, but they were generalists as well. Right. And they just knew where to put the camera and tell the story in the most persuasive way without drawing attention to this.
Exactly. Yeah.
Then there's a middle Holden also.
Yeah, I was going to ask you when he transitioned, when you feel like he transitioned.
Not the transition so much, but there was a Holden between these executive suite, for instance, where he plays executives.
And the Counterfeit Traitor, the one that you were talking about.
Well, that's later. But in the 50s, there were all these black and white movies. Patterns was another, it wasn't a Holden film, but there was a whole question. Gregory Peck sort of brought it in. It was a subgenre. The man with the gray flannel suit, who was running business, and the crisis that they had was, are you going to be cynical about it and run the business for money, or are you going to run the business for the workers' benefit? Wall Street later on, with the Martin Sheen character, kind of poses that question again. But Holden played several of those, and at a certain point, it almost seemed like he was the go-to guy for this. He also was the romantic second player, although he made more money than the leads. So a film like Love is a Many-Splendored Thing, for instance, he really is the co-star to Jennifer Jones's character. But he gives it such substance that it really, when he gets lost at the end, this film itself, the bottom of the film falls out, and you feel her loss, and then they even reiterate it by having him in narration, in deathly voiceover, essentially say something that we have missed. We've had the Many-Splendored Thing to kind of make that awkward sounding title work for the film, because the book was such a big bestseller. The book was actually called A Many-Splendored Thing. They added Love Is to liberalize you see. But that's where Holden got stuck.
And I haven't seen many of those films, so I can't...
World of Susie 1 is another in there. And he had several. The Devil Never... Or Satan Never Sleeps. Yes, he plays a priest in that. But where the big change came for me was the Wild Bunch.
Right. Well, that's the old Holden.
Yes, that's what he moves. But as I said,
that's his Nobody's Fool. I mean, it's the opposite of Nobody's Fool for Paul Newman, but he says, now I'm transitioning to the old Holden. Because,
and he was respected by other actors because, Clint Eastwood, in his second directing thing, Breezy. He used Holden, and it was a good picture. And it just, nobody went to see it.
Very underrated picture.
No one went to see it, but it was a good film, and Holden fitted it well. The other thing about Holden, and it's a quality I envy him, was that there was something about him that drew women to him. I mean, the women just loved this guy, you
Yeah.
know. And he didn't mistreat, I mean, privately. He didn't use it, and he wasn't a womanizer, for instance, but virtually every actress that worked with him,
Right.
Grace Kelly, Audrey Hepburn, Capucine, all of them said they fell in love with him, while making the film. Some went on after he divorced to have actual relationships with him. And even at the very end, he was much older, and he attracted a young and very vital and very attractive Stephanie Powers.
Okay.
And that relationship lasted right up to his death.
Yeah.
And today she runs that, he had the Kenya Club, which was, he was concerned about the ecology and animal preservation of the animals in Africa. And he started this Kenya Club with, I think Charles Boyer was part of that, and I think Dick Powell. And after he died, Stephanie Powers continues it to this day, And so he did have a great deal of personal appeal.
And I think he made some movies about animals.
Yes, he did. Right, yes.
The Lion,
right,
and
yes.
something like that. The movie of his that I really like, which is underrated, Wild Bunch is great, but a couple years after that, he made a movie called The Wild Rovers.
Yes.
And that is an incredibly
I know.
underrated picture. I couldn't believe watching it that Blake Edwards, who we all know from the Pink Panther movies, made a movie that when you watch it, you go, this man must have made 20 westerns, but he only made one.
Yes.
But he wrote it, he produced it, he directed it. He has such a good feel for the West. Everything's in tune.
I have a little history with that film.
Oh, really?
Yes.
What's the history?
Well, the history was, I saw it on preview.
Yeah.
Okay, I was working in New York as a waiter, and I saw it on preview because one of my customers told me, he was working for the company, and he gave me preview tickets. I went to see it with my friend Randy, who was a cinematographer. We practically cried at the end of the film.
Right.
We came out and we praised the film to heavens. To every friend I had, everybody talked. The film came out, it got some of the worst reviews. Called it sentimental, sloppy, stupid, all of that. And I was at the age where I was really not confident or secure of my opinion.
Right.
And I really began to question my own
Your own
taste.
judgment, yeah.
Yes, and my own judgment. And later on, years later, I watched the film and I felt the way you did.
Yeah.
I did not change my mind at all.
It's so amazing.
Yes.
And it's interesting.
And Ryan O'Neal is wonderful in it.
Oh, he is.
That's another underappreciated, underestimated actor.
Well,
period.
actor and specifically that performance,
Right.
but their chemistry
Yes.
as the buddies, they play ranch hands. If you haven't seen the movie, most people haven't.
No.
They play ranch hands who decide basically we can keep working our asses off for this ranch boss, or we can rob a bank and go to Mexico and buy our own ranch. And it's very low key.
Yes.
For the most part, just kind of moving along, and then suddenly there'll be these sudden bursts of violence and tragedy that just catches you off guard, and it's really, really powerful.
One of the things that helps the film and makes it for me is the rhythms that Blake Edwards as the director gets you in, because he gets you in their rhythms, especially Holden telling those stories and how he feels about things, and young Ryan O'Neal buying into it and wanting into it so well, wanting to be part of that, and then how it leads to bad things.
Right, exactly.
Really lovely film.
But I think it's actually, to me, I'm not saying it's a superior, I can't say it's better than Wild Bunch, but to me, for Holden's performance, it's actually sort of his final great performance in his filmography for me. Because after that, he did some okay ones, but stuff like The Omen 2, and even, it just kind of sank.
Well, SOBs, which was his last
That's
one.
his very last one.
Blake Edwards again.
That's an interesting
it's really pushes too hard what it tries to do. But going back, I mean, you mentioned The Counterfeit Traitor, another film that nobody saw, because it took so long to make, and it had so many interruptions.
But that's before his old period.
Right. Yes, that's before. That's still when actors, leading men, especially handsome leading men, have a real struggle with that transition.
Right.
They don't always know when to make it,
Right.
and even the people hiring them don't always know when not to hire them as a romantic lead.
Yeah.
And Holden had it. Paul Newman ran into that problem until he made the decision at a certain point. And
yeah, like the 80s were an awkward period.
Yes, for Newman.
Yeah.
Yes, and that's something we should talk about sometime because he had such a nice career. But the Counterfeit Traitor, I remember the word was that this was a terrible movie because it had taken so long to do. It's an engrossing spy film based on a true story. He plays a Dutch spy, and he's terrific in it. But I want to go back to Sabrina because you mentioned Sabrina, and I think he is so terrific in it. I don't see his as a supporting part. I see it as 3 equal leads. And one of the reasons I think that works is because of the romantic contest that they're involved with for the attention of Sabrina. And that's the mistake I thought they made with the second one. They made several errors, I felt. Sidney Pollack.
But Greg Kinnear is not equal with Harrison Ford.
In terms of his star power at that time. That was his first movie.
Yeah.
Later on, perhaps, you could say, because then there's a question, there was no question who she'd go to. Where with this, Holden had been leads, romantic leads. And so I remember when I saw the film and everybody else automatically assumed she'd go to Bogart. And so it was a nice surprise that she went with Bogart later on. I mean, everybody assumed she'd go with Holden, that she went with Bogart, you see?
Right.
And so it balanced, and it balanced better than the original casting, because the original casting was Cary Grant in the Bogart role.
Right, that would have been too easy.
Yeah, it would have been too easy, and it was because Billy Wilder always wanted to work with Cary Grant. He never did.
Well, and cinematically, we've already seen Bogart lose the girl.
Right.
So we know, like in Casablanca, so we know it's very possible.
Right, exactly. And so I really like Holden in that because he showed a side of himself that is very light, very sunny, and totally convincing without any of the cynical aspects. Yeah. And so that's a very nice thing to show his acting ability one more time, what you said. Because he was really very much the everyman. There is not I can't think
I was going to ask if you think there's a modern equivalent to William Holden. Like someone that either captures the everyman thing or more so that can capture that cynicism.
Well, right now, it seems like there's a whole generation of new actors that just come along that I'm just getting used to and acquainted with. People like Bradley Cooper, who I really like, and even looking at Christian Bale and actors like that. The biggest problem we have with contemporary actors, and it's not a problem, it's a circumstance of the times, okay, is that actors become specialists, where before the 50s, the 40s, actors were generalists, so that Henry Fonda could play everything from an absent-minded professor to a tough cowboy, okay? Right. And the same thing with Holden, you see. So he could play a dedicated doctor, a cynical playboy, a concerned executive, a moral cowboy, whatever. A lot of actors today don't have that kind of range and variety.
It's true.
One, because they pick their own roles, where the studios in the old days kind of put you in, and so they pick a comedy, because they wanted variety for their audience. Although they typecast you in certain films so that if they knew westerns were popular, they put you in every third or fourth film as a western.
Right.
But they give you range, to try other things. And so I really can't, at this moment, put my finger on somebody who would be the equivalent of Holden.
Well, there's kind of everymen like Matt Damon, who's just but they don't capture the feeling that Holden could get.
So much of the contemporary actors, in order to be taken seriously, they come on heavy. Psychologically heavy, dramatically heavy.
I know that Clooney is considered to be, most often he's compared to Cary Grant, but in some roles, like example, Michael Clayton. I could never see Michael Clayton played by Cary Grant, but I could see it played by William Holden. And I could see Clooney replacing Holden in Alvarez Kelly, or in some of these films that we've talked about.
Yeah, we talked about that. Clooney is a good choice. The only reason I didn't really select him was I was looking toward the younger people,
Right,
because Clooney is, what, 50 already? Yeah, no, I was looking for somebody 30, because then you have 20 years of that range of the actor. But Clooney is a good choice because he seems to carry those qualities through. We should talk about Alvarez Kelly.
Well, I wanted to remind you to talk about it because you like that movie a lot. I like it too.
I watch it all the time. Every time it's on the Western Channel.
Yeah.
I watch it because I think it's so good.
It's one of those, if you guys haven't seen it, it's one of those war westerns, Civil War westerns, which is a subgenre of its own, really. Right. With Richard Widmark.
The Horse Soldiers, with Holden, is the same genre.
Yeah, which is really good.
Yeah.
It's not really good, but it's got some good things in it. With Holden especially and John Wayne. But Richard Widmark and William Holden are the leads in Alvarez Kelly. And it's really good. What do you want to say about it?
Well, just to tell anyone who hasn't seen the film, he plays, what is it? He's a combination of Latino, Irish.
Right.
And again, they're spinning off a little bit of the cynic because he is selling cattle to the highest bidder, whether it be the North or the South. Yeah. And that's the dilemma of the picture. But to watch Holden's character, because his is the more interesting of the two characters. Richard Widmark plays this very dedicated Confederate soldier who at one point shoots off one of William Holden's fingers. And William Holden has a great line. He says, "God save us all from dedicated men."
Right.
Like this. But what Holden plays well in this, I mean, he plays the whole film well, but the stuff I love is his interplay with the women again. He has an interesting relationship, which I had hoped would have been expanded in the film, but the nature of the plot requires that it only be brief, with Richard Widmark's girlfriend, really, who's played by Janice Rule. And the two characters play their scenes so well that it's just a pleasure for me to watch the film. And Holden just carries it. He's the title character, so he has to carry it more than Widmark. He carries it so well again. The tough guy mixed with the cynic, mixed with an intelligent man.
He's very smart, yeah.
And there's a wonderful moment, at least, and a wonderfully amusing moment for me in the early part of the film, where this beautiful Southern woman pretends to she be sexually interested in him in order to disarm him so that the Southerners, the Confederates, could come in and take over.
Right.
And when they do, he turns to the guy and he says, "You bastards couldn't wait another half hour, couldn't you?" Because by then he would have been in the
Right, exactly.
and only Holden could have delivered the line so well that it's virtually a belly laugh.
Yeah.
Yeah, like that.
That's really
But
funny.
yeah, for people who have not seen William Holden, I go along with Travis here when he says that he is among the best actors motion pictures have had. I actually wrote down a couple of statistics because one of the things they said was that he was considered by AFI one of the 25 greatest screen legends of cinema.
Wow.
Yes. Another.
These days people don't talk about him much. So
it was really nice to hear that he was a top box office star from 1956 to 1957. 1 year where nobody else earned him. He was considered number 57, the sexiest star in film history, and that's from Empire magazine. So he is still
vital.
Yes.
But and there's so many films left in his filmography, which you probably saw throughout the years, but I haven't seen them.
Well, I made a list.
Still going through them,
I made a list of the ones that stood out for me. One is Sabrina. I've talked about that. We talked about Sunset Boulevard. We talked about Stalag 17, his Academy Award winning film. Bridge on the River Kwai. The Wild Bunch, which is my favorite of all his pictures, really, because for me it's his Tempest. He sums up, as an actor, everything he knows about life and about film.
Okay.
acting.
Right.
I think in that singular performance.
Interesting.
And one of the things that really makes it work for me, and I saw the film just recently again, is the very end when the generale has given them the money, everything, and they're messing around with the women,
Right.
and the generale cuts the young man's throat, their partner's throat, and they could leave and just go off and live their lives.
They can't.
And Holden was the one who says, I really don't like this. And he gets up and he walks over, but without language, the body language, everything, that's why I say everything he sort of knows about life, he sort of draws that on that.
Yeah.
And when he says, let's go,
Mm-hmm.
you could see it communicates itself to everyone, particularly Ernest Borgnine, who it's one of his best roles ever. And then they go for the ultimate, massacre thing. But that moment, to me, is so powerful. And they extend his entire performance in that film, that moment when he says, if you back a man, and if you don't, you're like some kind of animal. Again, that the lines are good, but more than the lines, it's what Holden brings to it. As I said, they say about Shakespeare that they think he summarized everything he knew about life in his play The Tempest. His compassion, his patience, his surrender. And that's what I get from Holden's performance with Wild Bunch. So that's one. Another one, we mentioned The Counterfeit Traitor. The Country Girl.
Okay, I haven't seen that. Bing Crosby.
Yes. Another film where he doesn't carry the dramatic action, Crosby does.
Okay.
Crosby has the larger dramatic arc to follow. But he is such good support that he keeps the film absolutely in balance.
Interesting.
And the other film I listed is Picnic. And he is really too old for the role, but his special star presence really gives that film its special quality. Like that.
I haven't seen that one either.
The story, it seems a little creaky now, but it had resonance, particularly as a play in the 50s, and periodically they revived the play. But you look at the movie version, I've seen the play several times, Holden's special quality really enhances that picture, and it makes it important. If you take him out of it, you put somebody else, a contemporary star at the time who was more the age for the character, I don't think it would have worked as well.
Yeah. Interesting. So who are we doing next week? Or it probably won't be. I'll be shooting a movie next week. But the next time we meet.
Yes. I don't know. I'll figure somebody and I'll tell you. I haven't thought of it.
Gosh.
Well, I was thinking, and maybe if you want to, because I've been reading a lot, film noir. You want to deal with a genre?
Sure.
And we'll talk about
break
film
from actors, and we'll just deal with, because I wanted to cover genres at some point. So
we'll say film noir
is our next Gus and Travis talk film.
Perfect.
So we will be back. Thank you for watching.
Yes, thank you. And we'll see you when we're in the shadows of noir.
Right, we'll light it. We'll light it all.
Yes.
Awesome.